Now let's look at salesmanship management. Do you know people are upset because you don't buy their miracle super duper long living juice and pills and vitamins? This beats all I ever seen. A fella quit coming to church because I wouldn't buy his live forever medicine. He got mad at me. And he said, Brother Rhodes, you really need this. You need it. It's already proven it. It'll help you. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. And I can't take everybody's product. But they think you're going to have to. The preacher will probably hear this. But I guess it's all right. I was in a place and I don't know how to sniffle or something. And he said, Brother Rhodes, you need so-and-so stuff. I'm going to take you down here to the health food store and get some of that. You need to have this. We go down there and pay a big sum of money for this stuff. Guess who paid for it? I didn't want it. And I never used it. I used it just in his presence. That's it. I can't take everything. I mean, you go here. Well, you catch a call. Well, now you need to take this, you need to take this, you need to take this, you need to take this. Well, how big do you expect me to get taking all that stuff? And if you're selling something, God bless you. But I can't buy it all from you. And even if you want to give it to me, I can't take it if you give it to me. There's just certain things I have to decide a little bit what goes inside of me. And some of your super juice I may not want, or your super duper something else. I got to take some stuff that I'm pretty satisfied with, and I'm still alive. But listen, don't get upset if somebody don't buy your Live Forever juice and your Settle It All pills. And you see, take this and take that and take this and take that and take this and take that. Well, if you don't watch, you can just overdo yourself on stuff. Now, I think that's about enough said on that. If you got something to sell, and if somebody don't buy it, don't get mad at them. Now, ego management. I don't know why these are placed like this. It doesn't make any difference. We're going back and forth and around and around. These are supposed to be moved together, but that's all right. It's a good thing to change gears anyway. Ego management. Titles, honor, and fame, and doctor, and mister, and ego, and is a killer. Now listen to this. There's people that want to be called doctor or Mr. this and Mr. that. There is a problem in the American society, particularly among plain people, that have very little respect for elderly people. Everybody's John and Henry and Pete and Mary and Susie. After all, that child and you yourself need to understand that somebody older than you better watch what you're saying. I have people just rebuke me, just walk up to me and rebuke me for something. Not even thinking about it. Just come up and tell me I oughtn't do this. And I think, well, now, what am I doing wrong? I didn't do nothing wrong. Just go rebuke you. You know, they got used to it. They don't even think about it. You say, well, I'm not aware of doing it. You better get aware of doing it. Your ego gets in the way. You have the authority. You're the one that has to be telling everybody what to do. You know what ego is? I mean, it's right for you to call someone Mr. or Mrs. or sister or brother or something. There needs to be some titles put on some people above you. I'm not talking about a person that's 80 years old talking to a 90-year-old. I'm talking about the simple fact that as you're growing up, you need to respect older people than you. You need to have some respect. You don't just tell your school teacher, hey, Nancy, can I... No, wait a minute. No, that's not Nancy. You don't call her Nancy. Now, if you called her Ms. Nancy or Miss Nancy or something like that, it's a different story, but there has to be some respect given. Your children walk up, and I've got kin folks that do this all the time, walk up to their dad and say, hey, John. Well, no, hold it. You don't call your dad like that. What's wrong with calling him dad? Well, I'll tell you what, it's sheer respect, that's why. I was in the South where they have more respect for adults than I've ever seen in my whole life. I was at a home of a dad who had a number of sons, and I'm there visiting, and the family's coming home. And I watched those boys, and I never saw such respect given in my life as those boys did. They walked up to their dad and told him, hello, Mr. So-and-so, how you doing? Good to see you feeling good. Now, they didn't call Dad. They called him Mr. So-and-so. They'd walk up to their mother, and they didn't call her mother Mrs. So-and-so. That was the way they were taught to do it. Management. See, that dad had managed those children, and he showed them how he wants to be respected. Guess what happens to the next generation? What do you think happened to those boys and girls? What do you reckon happened? Exactly the same thing. Now, at my home, we were taught, if I'd have walked up and said David to my daddy, I'd have got slapped in a hurry. Or call him the old man. He might have been an old man, but you don't call him an old man. And you see that the thing that we don't manage correctly. If you don't manage your children and have them stop right here, what did you call that preacher? Hey, come here. What did you call that preacher? You don't call him that. You put a title to him. You can call him brother, or you can call him pastor or something. You just don't go up and call him that. There are still people in our circles that walk up to me and say, Daniel, ask me questions and so forth. You know why? Because their parents are in rebellion. No exception. Not talking about an exception. There is no exception. Now, there's people that want to make sure that they write to me and say, Dr. Rhodes, or they talk to me on the phone, Dr. Rhodes, or they meet me somewhere, Dr. Rhodes. No, I'm not a doctor. And a way I am, because if you have, according to the Bible dictionary, if you are a pastor of a church, you're a doctor. You're a doctor of the law. But the thing of it is, if you have to have a title just for ego, I don't like the word Mr. Rhodes. I don't like it. Never did. I wanted to be called Daniel because that's my name. Or Dan. But you know what? The Lord got on my case one day, and He said, you do not let people call you by your first name. There needs to be some respect. You are not to be walking around letting people just call you that way. He said, you have to have some respect. It's obligated. Folks, if you don't manage that ego situation, it's going to grab on your children. You just go around, just decide you're the boss and you're going to do this, and it's going to get off on your children. I remember an old preacher one time saying, somebody told him, I don't know where the world these children got all this pride from. And he said, I grinned and I looked at the dad. I said, look at yourself in the mirror. He said, that's all I needed to say. They caught on. Ego needs to be, listen, ego is not bad in itself. It's when you reign supreme over it. You have to have a certain measure of respect for yourself. And this humility that they got out there called humility is about as stinking of stuff as you can get. Going around saying, oh, we're just a bunch of unworthy people. Get a hold of Jesus. He'll make you worthy. You're not going to, you can't con heaven. You can con man, but you can't con heaven. Ego should be managed very carefully. It is normal for a person to want to do something, but not with the wrong attitude. It's all right for you to be noticed. Now, if you don't believe that, you check your Bible. It's all right to be noticed. I'm going to give you this guy's name because it tickled me. It really tickled me. John Rice, I don't know how many of y'all knew John Rice, but John Rice, he tickled me. That the preacher gets up here like this. He's one of these new boy preachers, and he gets up and he says, you know, ladies and gentlemen, I just feel so unworthy to be here. I just wish that I just had a cloth that I could throw over my head so that y'all can't see who I am. And John Rice said, brother, it doesn't cost much to buy one of them. And you know, that's exactly what he should have said. If you put a cloth over your head so nobody see you talking, get yourself a tape recorder and talk on it and hand it around. Come on, I expect to look at a guy's go talk to me. I don't want him under a bushel. The Bible even says, don't put your light under a bushel. So, trady, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. You know, it's not, I tell you what, folks, it's not anything wrong with you loving yourself. Whoa-wee. The Bible says nobody ever yet hated himself but loved himself. Ephesians. All right, what's wrong is when that is supreme above others. You love yourself more than anybody else. And it comes out like this. You hurt my feelings. Why'd you get your feelings out there? The Bible talks about people being high-minded and heady. You know, boy, you have to listen to me. I'll tell you one thing that upsets me. You know what? I'm as high on the ladder as you can get as far as a position with Jesus Christ. I'm as high on the ladder as you can get. And I'm no higher than you are. I hate that thing of people thinking, well, now you are. No, I tell you what. When we get to the other side, you do what you're supposed to do, I do what I'm supposed to do, everything will work along fine. This old thing of ego and have to be called some title or something. I had a terrible time when they'd put on these books, Apostle Daniel Rhodes, and I'd say, I don't want that on there. And finally they got a hold of me and said, Pop, you have to have it. You need that. You need to understand. You know, do you know it takes a certain measure of humility to yield to that? But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resist the proud, but giveth grace to the humble. I tell you, that meek person sometimes is one that gets pretty rough. Moses, I'll tell you what, Moses goes down the meekest man on earth. Nobody's as meek as he is. God said, boys, you meet me down there tomorrow. Who do you think you are? I want to just tell y'all fellas, if the earth doesn't open up and swallow you whole, then I'm in the wrong place. The earth is going to open up and swallow all y'all. Moses, where's your meekness? Where's that intercession? Where's this great intercessor, this humble intercessor? You know what he is saying inside of him? It's time for those fellows to be wiped off the face of the earth before they contaminate the whole country. It's mercy that caused God to kill them fellows and cut them off. Mercy that they heard him screaming as he went down in the ground. You say, well, isn't God merciful? That's the reason he did that. He has to cut that rebellion out. And I would to God one day would come that God would say in the church, all right, you're going to be rebellious, I'll cut you off. Oh, Ananias and Sapphira didn't have a chance. The preacher wasn't up there saying, hey, give them another chance. Lord, you're not going to kill them fellas, are you? I mean, give them another chance, please. The Lord said, I have to remove those people lest they contaminate the eliminate the whole gang. That's why he said, when a person commits adultery, stone him. He's going to mess the country up. Then when that stopped, the country got in bad shape. Israel got into apostasy. And everybody going along fine. Nobody getting killed, nobody being stoned. The young people do as they please, everybody does as they please. And Israel got themselves in trouble, and God had to punish them, get carried away captive and everything else. And Jesus also said, take heed that you do not yawn before a man to be seen of them, otherwise you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. You go around and say, hey, you know how much money I gave last year? How much did you give? I'm not going to ask them that. How much money do you reckon I gave last year? Oh, maybe $10. There's a woman was forevermore saying, how old do you think I am? I'm having a birthday. How old do you think I am? And I decided I'm going to fix her next time she says that. She said, you know, I'm having a wedding anniversary. How many years you reckon I've been married? I said, oh, maybe 50. She never asked me no more. That was the end of that. Well, now, prayers, thou shalt not be as hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogue and the corner streets, that they may be seen of man. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. Folks, you better manage that thing. Oh, you get up here and you're going to pray a dignified prayer. Like they used to say, oh, dear Lord, help us through the uneven journey of life. And when the toils and the tribulations of this life is o'er, that we can come across that Jordan River and find rest on the other side. No, come on. God's not interested in your flowery prayers. He wants to know what you got to say. And if you're praying for somebody else, they aren't interested in your beautiful stuff. You tell your beautiful stuff behind the scene. I think what you need to do is hit the target. I stood right here. I stood right here. The fellow used to sit right there. And I said, Lord, you told me stop praying for him. I'm not going to do it. I said, because I'm just not going to let you do it. Now, if you can give me a reason why I have to stop praying for that person, I'll listen to you. But you're going to have to give me a reason. You say, who do you think you are? I tell you, I'm an intercessor. That's what I am. I said, Moses stood in the gap. And if Moses could do it, I can do it. The Lord said, you have finally learned a lesson I'm trying to get across to my people. What's the lesson? When I shut the door, I cannot reopen it, but you can. He said, there's a many a person stop when I tell them I'm finished. Moses knew that. I've had people challenge me, said Moses should have never done that. Well, I'll tell you what happened to that fella. That fella got saved. He got saved because somebody didn't let him go. And you say, well, you know, to me, we don't want to wait forever to learn how to manage things. We need to manage our life so that we can approach that individual where all hope is gone and turn them around. How do you know that you can't turn somebody away from that? The Lord said, when I say the door is shut, that means as far as I'm concerned, I'm finished. But you can open the door. Now, if I tell you after that, then it's a different story. Hand management. You know, your hands, your eyes, and your ears and your mouth all are very important. They have a destiny to them. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever you say can affect you 100 million years from now. Jesus said, you don't call a brother a fool. He said, if you do, it's going to affect your eternity. All he did was call his brother a fool. But Jesus said, you're in danger of hellfire. Certainly couldn't have been that bad. You know what, folks? When you start talking like that, it isn't because that's the only thing you said. It's because you have a habit of running your mouth wrong. When I'm going to be jumping around here a little bit, but if I'm going to lay hands on somebody, particularly in the case of getting them healed or something, I have to make sure that I got sanctified hands. I can't just have hands that's just there. What are you doing with your hands? Are you managing your hands? Does your hands have good managing practices to it? What are you doing with them? It's a very simple thing just to walk over and open the door for someone. Help them out. Be courteous. My wife tells me I can get in the car by myself. I know she can. But I've had to help her a number of times when she got hurt. And I'll tell you what, it's just hard for me not to do that. I'm used to it. I want to do it. So I'm letting her more or less get in by herself sometimes, especially if we're in a hurry. But those hands ministering, see, if you keep clean hands, they can be valuable. I walk up to my wife probably 20 times a day, and I touch her. It may be a tap on her shoulder. It may be I squeeze her fingers a little, or maybe I just go like this, you're a sweetie. But I'm touching her. It's those hands have a value to them. They're meaningful. And if those hands are not disciplined correctly, which let me make a suggestion to you. Unless it's an emergency, I think it's best not to use your hands in discipline. If you do, I'm not criticizing you. But I really believe that a rod is what the Bible talks about. It doesn't say hit them with your hand. And it doesn't say pinch them. Now, at the same time, if that's the only sword you got, you have to use that. But what I'm saying is keep those hands usable. Lifting holy hands. When you lift those hands up, they're undefiled. They're not messed up with some criminal act. It's just the sake of greedy money. It defiles those hands. Greed, reaching out. I want you to give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. Those hands will never be a blessing to anyone. Because you're reaching out to get everything for nothing. And, you know, that's what drives people to reach out to get the lottery, to win the lottery. How many do you know of that's been blessed to hit the lottery? Recently, they just came out with they checked everybody that received the lottery ticket, and almost without exception, there are dreadful problems in those people's lives. Because the hands that God has given us is not used properly. And by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people, and they were all with one accord in Solomon's porch. And then it says here in Acts 8:17, they laid their hands on them and received the Holy Ghost. It talked about the people receiving the Holy Ghost after they laid hands on them. You know, if those hands are not anointed, they're not managed correctly. You need your hands anointed. I don't just lay hands on people just for the sake of laying hands on them. If I'm going to lay hands on you, and there's at least some of you have felt the anointing flowing out of me right into you. But these hands have to be kept clean. Because if the anointing is going to flow through them, it has to be a purity in there. See, if you got lust in your heart, leave your hands off of the opposite sex. Don't do it. Keep yourself pure. Don't get lust in your heart. Y'all remember that woman that came up to pray for me one time, said, the Lord said, I'm supposed to pray for you. And I looked at this woman in the eye and I said, I don't let whores pray for me. When I said that, that was a horrible thing to say. I don't even know why I said it. But it was a word of knowledge came out of me. She went back and sat down. And that woman turned a complete circle. She told me, when you said that, the Holy Ghost got a hold of me and said, you need to change your life right now. And if I wouldn't have said it, she'd have been still the same old woman. She thanked me for correcting her publicly. And she said, I don't know how in the world I was that blinded. But I was blinded to this thing. I was living in adultery the whole time. And I'm blinded to it. I don't say I can be blinded to it myself. Let me get this itchy eye scratched. That thing's in the way. You're not supposed to put that kind of stuff on a tape. Well, it's on there now. And here's a guy that in Acts chapter 8:18 that didn't have the right attitude. He has a desire to lay hands on people, but he had the wrong attitude. And he walks up and says, Brother Kevin, I'm just making this story up. Brother Kevin, I'll give you $20 if you'll let me do that. And Peter looked around and said, your money perish with you. Because the man didn't have the right attitude. Paul said, you know that these hands have ministered unto my necessity and to them that were with me. In Acts chapter 20, verse 34. You know what? This is real important. Paul said, I'm not going around trying to get everybody to feed me. You know, when I was told by the Lord that I have to give up the pastoring of this church, you know what happened? That means that my money would get cut off. So we had a ministers' meeting. I said, folks, I want to know what we're supposed to do now. You know, I'm going to have to make a living some way. One of the ministers walked up to me and said, you know, I know that was hard for you to do. I don't know why we didn't think about it before you did, but when you said that, he said, I just want you to know that really hit us. And we're going to stand in here and help you. This was mentioned again at the ministers' meeting this time. Don't forget these apostles. I was the one in target. See, the idea of it is you minister, but you're not going to beg for money. I hate this thing of going out and begging and begging and begging. I will therefore, work with your own hands as we commanded you. 1 Thessalonians 4:11, Paul said, work with your hands. Get your hands busy. Dig some holes. Get going. Dig the taters. Somebody said, you should never pray for a potato crop leaning on a hoe. If you are going to be praying for a potato crop, you need to be using that hoe. And I think it's a good thought. God's not interested in your lazy stuff here. I will therefore, men pray everywhere, lifting holy hands without having done it. You know what? When you lift those hands up to heaven, and you've been ministering to other people's needs, it's not gimme, 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 gimme. It's you're ministering to other people's needs. You will hear the heart cry of people. You'll hear the starving, the hungry, those that are less privileged. Your hands, when they lift up, is different when you fed somebody else, when you help somebody else, when you bless somebody else. It's giving and blessing and just being a blessing, using your hands just to bless. And this eye management, do you know your destiny of what you do with those eyes and what you do with your hands and what you do with your ears and your mouth is going to depend a whole lot about your future. If you're going to listen or see the wrong thing, it's going to affect you. Temptations will come by way of hearing and eyes and mouth. That's how your big temptations come. And if you don't learn to control where your eyes are roaming, especially in this filthy world, if you don't keep your eyes under control, you manage those eyes, you can get yourself in a lot of problems. Many people have been condemned and brought into a position of Satan's attack with the misuse of their eyes. The eyes is often affected by the mind, and the mind is affected by the eye. When you start seeing, your mind comes into focus right away, and you begin to meditate upon that, and you begin to think about it. If you don't learn to manage, folks, you're going to have to learn an overall management. That you're going to have to learn to manage yourself. God is calling for a people that are well managed. A people that He's not afraid. I don't want to use the word afraid here, but I'm lacking a word right at the present moment. He's not afraid you're going to misuse it. He's going to pour out His blessing upon you. I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It will not cleave to me. That television will cleave to you. I remember once I said, if you have a television, watch it. And somebody really kidded me about that. I meant be cautious. And I still say, be careful. Television has its place. Oh, there's some people tell you it doesn't. But at the same time, be very careful. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. And then he goes on to say, if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is unprofitable when the members perish, not the whole body be cast in hell. I tell you what, he's saying, that eye is so important that it can get you in problem. And not only that eye, let me show you what that eye does. A man heard these words, go down to Ai, do not take any of the spoil. It'll be a curse upon you if you do. Don't do it. And Achan goes down. He had heard the warning. Jericho? What's it, Jericho? Okay. Ai is where they got chased back. He goes down there and saw this Babylonian garment, and he saw this wedge of gold. How do you reckon he got there? And he looks on it. I'd like to have that. See, he didn't manage his life. He didn't manage his eyes. He had already heard the warning, don't take it. But he says, I can take that and hide it, and nobody will get it out later. But wait a little. The next battle, they go to Ai, and they lost people's lives because that guy took that gold and that Babylonian garment. What did it matter? Because the man didn't manage his eyes. That eye caused the mind to think, what could I do with this? His hands reached out and took it. He didn't manage his eyes, he didn't manage his mind, he didn't manage his hands, and he carried off with it. Now, all Israel's in problem. It does matter what you do with your eyes. Jesus said you just look on a woman to lust after you've already committed adultery in your heart with her. Isn't that pretty critical? It doesn't matter if it is or not. That's what he said. And I mean, we got some wicked stuff out there. I mean, there's more suggestive women out there now. You know, a fellow said one time, he said, I used to hunt girls. That's my life. He said, I couldn't find them. I'd go everywhere looking for myself a girl and I couldn't find any. He said I got saved one day and every girl in town wanted to go to bed with me. That's a trick of the devil. I said, no, I'm saved. My interest has changed. And he said, isn't that something how the devil offer you everything? I remember one time a guy said, I quit smoking because I felt like the Lord told me to quit smoking. And he said, never, ever did I go to work and anybody offer me a cigarette. But now everybody wants me to smoke. When I stopped smoking, I had a deacon visit. They thought I was trying to be big and good and better than anybody else. And I said, no, that's not the reason I'm doing it. The Bible also said, he that hates to get rich has an evil eye. That eye is evil. All it's thinking about is, I want that money. You go past driving down the road and you start coveting and got man's property. You know, we were sitting at the table one time and an elderly gentleman was there. He looked elderly to me because I was a little boy. And the telephone rang. And one of them old ring telephones. And that thing rang. And mother goes over and answered. And she come back and said, so-and-so died. This guy had never been married in his life. Jumped up and he said, oh, get her now, get her now. A guy was happy. He died. Then I say he died, and he go get his wife. He wanted her all his life. She wouldn't take him. I don't blame her. You rejoice over your husband dying and want you? No. Anyway, he died a bachelor. Whatever they are. You know what, folks? That stuff is just, that covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All that goes with that old eye problem. If you don't manage that eye, it's going to manage you. You go out there and say, man, I wish I had that. You know, one day, Esther and I really needed some money. We were out. I said, Lord, we really need some money. And I don't know what to do, but we really need money. And I went to the bank. And an elderly woman ahead of me was getting money put her in her pocket, and she dropped a $100 bill and started out the door. Now, I could have said, there, the Lord let her drop that so I could get the money we need. And I could have stuck it in my pocket and said, thank you, Lord. But there's a day of reckoning. As soon as that, I ain't thinking about that $100 bill. I was thinking about that woman getting home and she's missing some money. I said, ma'am. She's kind of hard of hearing. I said, hey, ma'am, you lost a $100 bill here. She said, oh, I'm getting old. I have a problem with that. She said, thank you so much. And I could have said, well, now God's blessing me. No, God is not going to bless a crook, a cheat, a deadbeat. You better keep them eyes focused on the right thing. You know, soon after that, we broke through. We wouldn't have broke through. And furthermore, that woman had been cheated. Folks, listen, if you got an evil eye, you got a problem. You need to manage that, because your eyes is going to cause your hands to be misused, and your ears are going to start misusing too. Now, let's go to ear management. All well-trained ears is capable of sieving out all the particles that's not any good. You have to have a good sieve on your ears. I won't listen to that. I'm not open to slandering tongues and gossip and bitterness and tale-bearing. I heard more slandering tongues recently because I was with a group of people where we came from to slander everything. The judgmental and slandering, and I said, what a mess we came out of. They don't even realize it. It's just, What's your ears picking up? Is your ears attuned to some kind of music that's sensual and devilish and suggestive? Or what is your ears tuned to? Do you have your ears managed? And you say, you know, I manage my ears. I'm not listening to that. And I'm not interested in the dirty joke. I don't want to hear them. Jokes will lodge in you. Filthy jokes will lodge in you. They'll get right deep down inside of you. And the devil wants you to pass them on, so they lodge in somebody else. I'll never forget an old man sitting beside me on a hay wagon. And he told me a dirty joke. He's supposed to be a good Christian. He told me a dirty joke, and I'm a little boy. That man never knew all his life. He never knew what that did to me. I was disappointed. I was let down. I thought this man would have enough respect not to feed a little boy something like that. You know why he did that? Because his mind is perverted. Heart is messed up. Take heed what you hear, Jesus said. And don't forget the things you meter out has come back to you. You be careful what you're hearing. You will judge according to what you hear and what you see. You will judge. You may be totally off. You know, a little boy was watching his parents, and they had a few disputes and so on like this. And finally, the father of the home and the mother went in another room, and one of the children were in bed and talked things over. And he said, you know, I think if you'd go back to your mother for a week and get kind of, you know, recuperated and stuff. And immediately, these children knew that the parents had called a meeting between the two of them and sent the children to bed. Now she says she's going to grandmother's house. And these children are all upset. This thing went on for a couple of days. He's planning this trip and so forth. And this little boy, about 6 years old, said, Dad, why are you divorcing Mama? He said, I'm not divorcing Mama. Why? Well, I heard you say last night you wanted to go back to her mama. Totally mixed up. But that's what they heard. And he thought he's divorcing. And you can't always go by what you hear. You think you're right. That's why the Bible says, judge not that ye be not judged, for with what judgment ye judge, you shall be judged. You don't always know. And the way you meter it out on somebody else is the same way it'll be metered out on you. This is tough stuff. Take heed, therefore, how you hear. And he said, first, he said, what's what you hear? Now he said, how you hear. How you hear it makes a difference. You know, some people pick up half of what you said, not the other half. And they hear something they didn't hear. Fella told me one time that I said so-and-so. He completely misunderstood me. I didn't say that. But he thought I did. At least he said he did. And I said, you know, and I approached him. I said, look, you know I didn't say that, don't you? You really know that, don't you? He finally admitted he did. You know what he's trying to do is get me. I said, oh, no, I'm not playing your games. You better know how you're hearing things. You better hear them. Right. See, it says in Acts 17:21, these people, all they want to hear or tell some new thing happening. Hey, you got any new gods to tell us about, or new things happening, these strange things? There's people who want to hear about all this stuff going on all the time. Gold dust here and gold dust there, and this happened there and this happened there, and this happened here and this happened there. But what I want to know is, how is this affecting your spiritual life? He that hath an ear, let him hear. That means hear the right thing. make sure you understand what you hear. You know why rock music just turns me completely off? Because I have managed my ear not to like that kind of stuff. It turns me off. I don't see how it's humanly possible to enjoy that stuff. I mean, I'd rather hear tin cans tied behind a dog's tail running down the street than that. I'm not recommending you do that. Be nice to your pets. But I'll tell you what, that's ridiculous. You know what they used to do that a lot when I was a youngster? Catch an old dog and tie tin cans behind him and let him run. And it's scary, you know, this thing's after him and he's running about pulling his tail off at the same time, hooking on to everything. And then they laugh about it. It never was funny to me. I'm just glad I wasn't born to be a dog. Somebody said the next round you might be a dog. No, not me. I've only got one chance in this thing. I don't come back a horse or a camel or a mosquito or anything else. So what you're doing, folks, with those ears and that mouth of yours, if you don't learn to govern and control and manage that thing, it'll manage you. You don't pass dirty jokes on. I won't listen to dirty jokes. Just don't tell me them. I'm not interested in them. Now let's look at this raiment management. How much do you spend on clothes? You know, I'm a blessed person. I got suits given to me and clothes given to me and suits given to me and shirts given. And I'm a blessed person. And so I don't generally have to buy much of anything because it's all given to me. But you know, if you don't have that same blessing rolled in, how much do you spend on it? Do you buy a real expensive suit or you buy a cheaper suit? Or a dress, the woman buying an expensive dress or a cheaper dress? I try to get my wife to get on out there and get something nice because we can afford it. We usually could. But what about that used stuff? You know, that can be addictive. You know, go get this $1.50 stuff, you know. I tell you what, I'd like for you to get a mentality of buying new stuff. But at the same time, if you can't afford it, don't let anybody judge you for buying something that's cheaper. Don't let somebody else decide where you spend your money. That may be none of their business. At the same time, this thing of buying used clothes sometimes is kind of immodest. You just don't buy just anything that's out there, or even new stuff. Is that modest or isn't it? Some of the most indecent people in the world are in churches. Mid-skirts and all kind of things in churches. You say we're supposed to have a pure mind. Who made the thing? Who do you reckon invented those mid-skirts? It wasn't a woman. I bet you it wasn't. You know, men today have the dumbest jobs you ever seen. They make all this stuff. It's because man has forgotten the purity and holiness of the race. Now women's doing men's jobs and men doing women's jobs. And there is a man called my wife and wanted to sell her some underclothes, and he's a man on the phone calling. I said, you tell that rascal to get out of there. Come on, you filthy thing, you dirty crumb. What are we doing anyway? What kind of a world are we living in? We're living in a perverted, filthy, dirty world. You know, folks, it's getting worse instead of better. I mean, the men are doing the women's jobs, and they like it. Did you know that there's a law being ready to be passed that if somebody wants to come into a woman's restroom and use the restroom instead of going to the men's, You can get I believe it said on the radio that you can get fined $5,000 and a year in jail, if I remember right, if you raise a complaint against that. Do you remember what I told y'all? I told y'all the day's coming that if a doctor makes an attempt to try to mess your wife up or your child or somebody else, you report him, you're the one who's going to get sued and put in jail. That day is coming. It's still coming. Because you're not going to be able to raise a complaint about them fellas. Whatever they decide to do, it's none of your business. When the day comes, you're going to cry out to God, and He's not going to hear you. That's that raiment management stuff I'm talking about. And like manner also that women adorn themselves with modest apparel and shamefacedness and sobriety, not with braid of hair or gold or pearl or costly array. Some of these swimsuits are not even fit talking about. Do you know some of these people that take fishing trips out have to deal with some pretty horrible stuff sometimes? Now they got clothes almost not even on you anymore. But I guess they want it that way. If we don't manage that raiment, we're going to be lenient. All right, let's say it like this. Your daughter wants to buy the wrong kind of clothes because your daughter wants to buy something and it's forbidden. But she'll start testifying, well, the preacher's daughter dressed like that. Then what are you going to do? The song leader's dressed like that. And what about this person? And then the parents say, well, I reckon, it's the fight of the day. I reckon we just have to go along with it. Who said you do? I tell you, folks, it comes a time we're going to have to do some deciding. We're going to have to decide what we're going to do. You say no, N-O. It really means no way. If your no is always no and your yes is always yes, there's no different than that. We used to have a friend. We'd go to their house, they'd come to ours quite a lot. And he had a habit of going, no way. You'd say something, he'd go, no way. And had this little girl, she was just a tiny little thing sitting on the high chair. And he's talking to me, and he looks over and he said, here, clean your plate up. He said to her. And she said, no way. And I got so tickled. It wasn't the right thing to do, but we all got tickled. He said, maybe I better stop talking like that. I said, yeah, your little girl's catching on. And that's what she's going to say when he says, now you have to dress a certain way. There's a fellow who calls himself an apostle come into our office and said, you need to get a chandelier and have a woman in a bikini hanging down from the ceiling so you get rid of all that religious ideas you got. The same man come to me and said, I don't know what to do with my daughter. She dresses the skimpiest. And I told her, you're not dressing like that. And I thought, you know what? I had a notion to tell him. I didn't. What you really need to do, brother, is to hang a woman with a bikini hanging down from a chandelier in your house so you don't get so religious. That's what I should have said, but I didn't. That's sarcastic, I know, and I didn't say that to him. But I thought, what in the world are we talking about? I mean, we got a double trigger mouth. Well, anyway, now that Bible doesn't say you can't wear gold. it says that you don't put that stuff ahead of everything else. Abraham's wife, the Bible even says Abraham's wife was dressed up with jewels and stuff. And not only that, but James said if a man comes into your assembly with a gold ring, you don't have partiality towards it. Listen, folks, I understand that. But I'll tell you what, if we don't get control of this generation, we're going to lose it. We're in a mess. I mean a big mess. Okay. Y'all are not a G-hawing here. Somebody's not, because we got different times here now. Well, let's get into dress management. When it's time back there, holler. Okay. Dress management. All right. What do you really dress up in this generation? Do you ever dress up? You go to Montana and most everybody wants to be casually dressed. I go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and they're all dressed up. And this guy walks in the door and he looks at me and he said, "Where in the world you from?" I said, "I'm from Virginia." He said, "What are you all dressed up about?" I said, "I'm going to church." "Oh." And he walks over and orders some chicken. And I thought, man, what in the world are we getting into? I started out the door because I got finished before he did. Started out the door. He jumped up from his chicken and come over there and said, "Hey, you really look good dressed up." He said, "I just want to tell you, you look good." I think they've asked Brother Eric already when he's dressed up, "Who are you? What are you trying to prove?" And they think you're stupid. I mean, you're supposed to be constantly dressed. Listen, not always, but it's a good indication that if you're causally dressed, you have a causal lifestyle in the spiritual realm. The Bible talks about being in modest apparel, but this modern day fried, the improper, indecent clothes and pajama days, oh yeah, nursing home, pajama days, and pajama school days, and I'll tell you what my philosophy is: get up in the morning, put on clothes, get them pajamas and put them away till the next bedtime, and let's go with it. Let's get something done. I mean, I hate to see, I've been in homes as a preacher. People are trying to make breakfast for me with their nightgowns on, their pajamas, and all this stuff, and the children are walking around. And, I'm not trying to be critical, I just automatically am. I'd like to see this nation... I'd like to see this nation begin to manage different. I mean, come on. Suppose I ran a restaurant, suppose I was a waitress at a restaurant, and I come with my night clothes on and started waiting on you. I'd say, "Did you get up? You should have got up before you come to work."